Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of just absolute precision.
Right, like engineering.
Yeah, exactly like engineering. Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that, that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, there it is.
It's binary. It's broken or not broken. It's clean, it's visible, and you can just categorize it.
Right. But then you step into the world of neurodevelopment or trauma or just the sheer nature of human consciousness. And suddenly that x-ray machine just completely breaks.
Yeah, it's useless.
And when that x-ray machine breaks, like, where do you look? Well, 3,000 years ago, way before MRI machines or modern neuropsychology, there was a text called the Katha Upanishad. And it built a blueprint of the human mind that is so accurate it actually explains why you can't put your phone out at 2 in the morning.
It really does. It is the absolute definition of navigating those diagnostic muddy waters.
Yeah.
Because humanity has been trying to map these waters for thousands of years,
Right.
we desperately want a blueprint for the mind, right? Like a reliable way to hack our own consciousness.
Which is exactly what we're going to try to do here.
Exactly. We want a method to conquer our deepest, most foundational anxieties, especially the fear of death.
And that is the exact mission of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're looking at this ancient text, specifically through the translation and commentary by Indic consciousness.
Yes.
But I want to be clear, we aren't just doing a history lesson here.
No, definitely not.
We are taking this ancient framework
Right.
and mapping it directly onto our modern psychological struggles. We were looking for the practical, operational mechanics of the mind.
And to extract the real value from this deep dive, we have to look past the mythological surface, because the text frames itself as a narrative dialogue between a young, annoyingly inquisitive boy and Yama.
Who is the literal lord of death.
Right, the literal lord of death. But if you look closely, the mythology is just it's a delivery mechanism. It's this profound psychological allegory about what happens to consciousness when the physical body fails. And crucially, how we're supposed to manage our minds in the meantime.
And the setup is incredibly dramatic. I mean, we have a father, his name is Vajrasrasa, and he's performing this massive, culturally significant fire sacrifice.
A huge deal.
Yeah. And the goal of this sacrifice is to achieve heavenly rewards. So the rule is pretty simple. You give away all your prized possessions, and the cosmic order blesses you.
Right, that's the transaction.
But he is completely cheaping out. He's hoarding the good stuff and giving away absolute garbage.
Yeah, the literal worst.
The text actually describes him giving away cows that have, quote, drunk their last water, eaten their last grass, given their last milk, and are barren and feeble.
He's performing the ritual purely for social and heavenly clout.
Yeah.
Like he's going through the motions of philanthropy while holding really tightly onto the things of actual material value.
Right.
And his son, Naciketā, who is just a young boy, sees right through this hypocrisy.
Of course he does. Kids always do.
Exactly. And the text says faith entered his heart. But in this context, faith isn't, blind belief. It's a piercing clarity.
Oh, I see.
He realizes his father is essentially dooming himself, because the cosmic law dictates that giving joyless, barren gifts leads directly to joyless, barren realms.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I immediately thought of a modern teenager calling out their parents on social media for performative philanthropy.
Oh, totally.
It's like the CEO who donates a microscopic fraction of their wealth to a trendy charity just to get the PR photo op.
Just for the Instagram post.
Yeah, well, systematically avoiding taxes. Naciketā is that kid sitting at the dinner table saying, you do know everyone sees through this, right?
Yeah.
It's an ancient, visceral tale of a generational ideological clash.
That is a brilliant parallel. He's essentially holding up a mirror to his father's ego, and he starts pestering his dad. He says, "Father, to whom will you give me?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his logic is bulletproof. Since the father is supposed to be giving away his most valuable possessions, the son is basically asking where he fits into the ledger.
He's calling his bluff.
Completely. And he asks a second time, then a third time. And finally, the father's ego just can't take the scrutiny anymore. He snaps, gets completely furious, and yells, "I give you to death."
Which is the ancient, literal equivalent of screaming, "Go to hell."
Exactly. It's a total loss of temper. But Naciketā, being this incredibly earnest, literal, and contemplative kid, he takes it seriously.
Wait, he doesn't just run away crying?
No, instead of throwing a tantrum, he reflects. He observes the natural world, noting how mortals ripen and decay like corn and are born again like corn.
Wow.
He accepts his fate with this strange calmness and actually journeys to the underworld. to the literal abode of Yama, the Lord of Death.
And here we hit a bizarre and just fascinating cultural mechanism, which is the cosmic rules of hospitality.
Right.
Because Naciketā arrives at the underworld, but death is out of the office.
He's on vacation.
Yeah, Yama's away for 3 days. So this young boy, who is a brahmana, which means he's a sacred guest, he sits on the porch of the underworld for 3 days and 3 nights without a drop of water or a bite of food.
And in the ancient Vedic framework, leaving a guest waiting without offering hospitality wasn't just, rude. It was a severe metaphysical transgression.
It was a big deal.
A huge deal. The text explains that neglecting a holy guest destroys a householder's hopes, their expectations, and the accumulated merit of all their good deeds.
So even death can't mess around with hospitality.
Exactly. The law of hospitality is so absolute that even death himself is bound by it. So when Yama finally returns and sees this starving boy on his porch, he is deeply apologetic.
I bet.
Yeah. To rebalance the karmic scales for those 3 nights of starvation, Yama offers Naciketā 3 boons, 3 wishes.
And the first 2 boons really ground Naciketa's character, I think. Because for the first boon, he asks for reconciliation with his father. He wants his dad to be free from anxiety and anger, and to welcome him back with affection when death eventually lets him go, which is surprisingly sweet for a kid who just got told to go to hell.
It really shows Naciketa's profound compassion. He doesn't hold on to resentment. He is grounded in his earthly relationships, which proves he isn't just some, aloof ascetic. He cares about human connection.
Right.
And Yama grants this instantly. Then, for the second boon, the boy shifts his focus to the cosmic mechanics. He asks for knowledge of the heavenly fire sacrifice.
Okay. Getting technical.
Yeah, he wants the blueprint to reach the heavenly realms, because that's a state of existence where there is no fear, no old age, no hunger, and no thirst.
And Yama is so impressed by the boy's memory and his dedication that he explains the exact architectural setup of the altar and the bricks. And Naciketā repeats it back flawlessly.
It's like a pop quiz he aces.
Exactly. Yama is thrilled, names the fire sacrifice after him, calls it the Naciketā fire, and throws in this multiform garland of gems as a bonus.
But then the atmosphere shifts completely.
Yeah, it gets heavy.
We arrive at the third boon, the ultimate question. Naciketā says, there is this doubt when a human being passes away. Some say he exists, while others say he does not exist.
Okay.
Taught by you, I wish to know the ultimate truth of this. He essentially asks for the literal blueprint of consciousness after biological death.
And this is the pivot point of the entire Upanishad, because Yama, the terrifying Lord of Death, immediately tries to back out.
Yeah, he panics.
The entity that fears nothing suddenly recoils. He tells the boy that even the gods had doubts about this question in ancient times.
Right.
He warns him that the truth is too subtle, too complex for the human mind to comprehend. He practically begs Naciketā, choose another boon, release me from this promise.
And Yama doesn't just ask politely. He throws the most overwhelming cosmic bride imaginable at this kid.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
He says, choose sons and grandsons who will live 100 years. Choose herds of elephants, gold, horses, a vast kingdom. Live as long as you desire.
Just throwing everything at him.
And then he brings out the heavy artillery. Celestial nymphs with chariots and lutes, things utterly unobtainable by ordinary human beings.
Wow.
He says, be served by them. But Naciketā, do not ask about the mystery of death.
And what's fascinating here is Naciketa's absolute, unwavering rejection of these gifts.
It's instant.
Yeah, he doesn't even deliberate. He looks at this promise of infinite wealth, absolute power, and endless sensual pleasure, and tells death, these things last only until tomorrow, and they wear away the vigor of all the senses.
That is such a key realization.
It really is. He identifies the biological trap of pleasure. Indulging the senses ultimately degrades the instrument itself. He realizes that even the longest biological life is just a blip in the grand scheme of eternity.
Right. He tells Yama, keep your chariots, dancing, and songs for yourself. Man can never be satisfied with wealth, which frankly is a staggering level of clarity for anyone, let alone a kid.
Absolutely. And why should anyone listening to this deep dive
care
about a conversation between a mythical boy and death? Because we are sold Yama's distractions every single hour of every single day.
Yeah.
We are sold relentless consumerism, instant gratification, the next tech upgrade, the next dopamine hit on our feeds. We are constantly offered these modern nymphs and chariots specifically to keep us from thinking about our own mortality and the deeper architecture of our minds.
That's the core relevance right there. Naciketā is the archetype of refusing to settle for the superficial. He tells Yama that no one who has caught even a glimpse of the immortal truth would ever delight in mere longevity or endless sensual pleasure.
Right.
He demanded the answer to his question. And this steadfastness, this radical detachment, proves to Yama that Naciketā is actually a worthy vessel for the highest spiritual knowledge.
So Naciketā refuses the temptation. But how does the human brain actually accomplish that level of detachment?
Well, Yama answers this by breaking down the architecture of human choice. He lays out a fundamental framework for how we navigate the world.
Okay, let's get into that framework.
Yama breaks down every single decision a human being makes into two diverging paths. There is Shreyas, which is the truly good, and there is Preyas, which is the merely pleasant.
Preyas and Preyas.
Exactly. And Yama explains that these two paths have completely different objectives, yet they both bind a person. They constantly approach us, demanding a choice.
This framing is incredibly useful. Like, if we look at modern psychology, is it fair to say that Preyas, the pleasant, is that impulse to doom scroll on social media at 2 a.m.?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it feels good in the microscopic moment, it floods those dopamine receptors, but ultimately it leaves your nervous system fried and drained.
Right.
While Shreyas, the good, is putting the phone in another room so you can actually get restorative REM sleep. It's way harder in the moment because you have to fight the craving, but it leads to a fundamentally better destination.
That is a perfect translation of the concept. The immediate gratification of Preyas operates purely on our primal neurobiology. It's the sugar rush. But the text escalates the stake significantly beyond just getting a good night's sleep. Yama says that the wise person examines these two paths thoroughly, discriminates between them, and actively chooses the good.
Okay.
But the dull-minded person chooses the pleasant out of a desperate desire for acquiring and preserving worldly possessions and temporary comforts.
Just chasing the high.
Exactly. And by continually choosing Preyas, you become a fool wandering aimlessly. The Upanishad paints a really tragic picture, describing them as staggering to and fro like the blind led by the blind.
Like the blind led by the blind. Living in the midst of ignorance, yet considering themselves intelligent and learned.
Yeah.
That is a brutal, timeless call-out of human ego. I mean, we build these massive structures of identity. We think we're so brilliant because we accumulated a certain amount of wealth or gained status or got promoted.
Right.
But fundamentally, we were completely blind to the actual reality of our existence. We were just chasing the next pleasant distraction.
And Yama warns that the truth of the hereafter, the deeper reality of consciousness, never reveals itself to the heedless person who is deluded by the illusion of wealth.
Because they're stuck in the physical.
Because they genuinely believe this visible, material world is the absolute limit of existence. And because of that, they fall under death's sway again and again. They remain trapped in a cycle of anxiety, acquisition, and loss.
But Naciketā didn't fall for it. He chose Shreyas. He chose the difficult good over the easy pleasant.
He did.
And because he passed that test, Yama finally opens up and answers the third boon. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this is the core of it.
Yama introduces the concept of the Ātman, the true self.
So Yama explains that this inner self, the Ātman, is never born and it never dies. It didn't originate from anything and nothing originated from it.
It just is.
It is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and ancient. And crucially, it is not destroyed when the physical biology of the body fails.
And the text drops this just mind-bending verse. It says, if the killer thinks that he kills, and if the killed thinks that he is killed, neither of them knows the truth. This self neither slays nor is slain.
Yeah.
Which completely short-circuits our standard biological understanding of life and death.
It demands a radical separation of our identity from our biological form. The Ātman is described in paradoxical terms. It's subtler than the subtlest, yet vaster than the vastest.
Right.
It is seated right in the heart cave of every living being. But Yama is clear. You cannot reach this realization through clever debate, logical reasoning, or sharp intellect.
You can't just outthink it.
No,
Yeah.
You can't even get there just by memorizing scriptures. It requires a profound experiential inner purification.
But trying to grasp something that is essentially beyond all logical reasoning is incredibly difficult. It's like trying to bite your own teeth.
That's a great way to put it.
So Yama gives Naciketā a tool, right? The sort of cognitive anchor.
Yes, he introduces the sacred syllable Om. Yama says that this ultimate goal, which all the Vedas declare and all spiritual disciplines aim for, is encapsulated in Om. It is the supreme support.
But how does a sound actually do that? Like, why does repeating a syllable help you grasp the unborn eternal self?
Think of it as an attention training device. The human mind is chaotic, right? Constantly generating thoughts, anxieties, and desires.
Endless noise.
Exactly. When you try to contemplate something infinite, the mind panics and starts grasping at concepts. The vibration of OM acts as a focal point.
Okay.
By concentrating on this specific sound, which represents the manifest and supreme Brahman, you give the mind a place to rest. Once the mental chatter subsides and the mind anchors onto the vibration of OM, the underlying silence, the awareness itself, can be experienced.
So it quiets the noise.
It's a mechanism for shifting from conceptual thinking to direct experiencing.
Okay, but even with that anchor, it's still highly abstract.
Yeah.
If I'm listening to this deep dive, trying to map this out in my daily life, how do I actually visualize the mechanics of my own consciousness?
Well, the Katha Upanishad anticipates that exact hurdle. It provides what is arguably one of the most brilliant and enduring metaphors in all of ancient philosophy, the allegory of the chariot.
The chariot.
Yes, it takes the invisible, abstract architecture of human consciousness and maps it onto a highly tangible, dynamic image.
Okay, let's build that chariot.
Yeah.
Who is sitting where and what is pulling it?
Imagine a horse-drawn chariot. The text says, know the individual self, the soul, the pure observer, as the master or rider of the chariot.
Okay, so the soul is just sitting in the back.
Right. The physical body itself is the chariot. The intellect, your discriminative faculty, is the charioteer, the one standing at the front who is supposed to be steering.
Got it.
The mind, which processes emotions and desires, acts as the reins. The senses, so your sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, those are the horses pulling the whole vehicle.
Okay, and what are they running on?
The objects of the senses, the things in the external world we interact with, are the paths along which the horses run.
The imagery is perfect, but I have to push back here. If the intellect is supposed to be the charioteer, the one actively driving this entire setup, why does it feel like the horses, our physical senses, are the ones in charge most of the time?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, my intellect knows I shouldn't eat the third slice of cake or stay up till 3 a.m. watching videos. The charioteer knows it's a bad idea.
Right.
But my senses drag me toward it anyway. The horses are running completely wild.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is addressing that exact universal struggle. Yama explains that whoever lacks discrimination, whose mind is undisciplined, finds their senses unruly and uncontrollable.
So they're wild animals.
The text explicitly compares them to vicious horses. If your mind, the reins, is slack, and your intellect, the charioteer, is asleep at the wheel or just lacks the strength to pull back, those horses will absolutely drag the chariot wherever they please.
They'll just chase the nearest carrot.
They will chase every single appealing sense object on the path until the chariot eventually crashes.
And a crash means you don't reach the destination. In the framework of the text, it means falling back into the cycle of worldly transmigration.
Right.
Being reborn into the mess all over again because you didn't learn how to steer.
Correct. However, the text provides the solution. Whoever possesses sharp discrimination and keeps the mind steadily focused finds the senses obedient and mastered like well-trained horses.
So you don't kill the horses.
No, the ultimate goal of life's journey isn't to kill the horses. You need your senses to navigate the world. The goal is to have a highly developed, discriminating intellect acting as an awake, focused charioteer.
Holding the reins tight.
Yes, holding the taut reins of a controlled mind, guiding the senses precisely along the right path to reach the supreme state.
It all comes down to the power dynamic. Are you the quiet rider, sitting peacefully in the back while the intellect expertly drives? Or are you being violently thrown around in the carriage because the horses have bolted toward a dopamine hit? To help us regain that control, the text gives us a specific hierarchy of subtlety. It outlines a cosmic chain of command.
Yes, it lays out an evolutionary ladder of consciousness, moving from the grossest, most physical level of reality to the most subtle.
Okay, walk me through the ladder.
It states that higher and subtler than the senses are the sense objects. Subtler than the objects is the mind. Subtler than the mind is the intellect.
Okay.
Subtler than the intellect is the cosmic intellect. Subtler than that is the unmanifest. And finally, higher than the unmanifest is the supreme consciousness, the Purua. Beyond that, there is absolutely nothing.
Wait, I need to pause on the very first rung of that ladder.
Sure.
It says sense objects are higher and subtler than the senses themselves. That feels completely backwards to my modern brain.
It does, yeah.
Wouldn't my biological eyes be infinitely more complex and higher than, say, the wooden table I'm looking at?
It does seem completely counterintuitive until you understand what they mean by objects. In this philosophical framework, the objects aren't just physical matter like a wooden table.
Okay, then what are they?
They refer to the subtle essences, the archetypes, or the conceptual realities of things which exist prior to our physical senses perceiving them.
I think I need an analogy for that to click.
Think of the concept of music or melody. Music, as an archetypal structure of harmony and rhythm, exists independently of your ability to hear it.
Okay, I follow.
Your biological ear, the sense, is just a crude biological microphone designed to pick up a specific range of vibration. The ear is just the instrument.
Oh, wow.
The source, the concept and essence of the music itself, is always higher, subtler, and more primary than the receiver. Our senses are just the biological hardware reacting to these subtle realities.
That is fascinating.
And the mind synthesizes those crude inputs, the intellect judges and categorizes them, and so on, all the way up the chain to the supreme consciousness, which quietly witnesses the entire operation.
That makes so much sense. The hardware is subordinate to the signal it's receiving.
Precise.
And the Upanishad doesn't just lay this out as a neat thought experiment to ponder over tea. There's a massive, driving sense of urgency in the text. This is where we get those iconic lines. This is, arise, awake, approach the illumined teachers, and realize the truth.
Yes.
The path to actually climbing this ladder of subtlety is described as being as difficult and perilous to walk as the sharp edge of a razor.
The razor's edge. It's a profound, almost aggressive call to action. It's shaking the listener by the shoulders and telling them to stop sleepwalking through life, letting the horses drag them into ditches.
Because it's dangerous.
Extremely. Walking a razor's edge requires excruciatingly intense vigilance because one lapse in concentration, one slip of awareness has severe consequences.
You fall.
You fall. You have to actively and consciously withdraw your attention from the external noise. You merge your speech into your mind into your intellect into the cosmic intellect, and finally into the peaceful self. It is a highly active process of involution.
But if the path is a razor's edge, how do we actually manage to walk it? Like, where are we supposed to be looking to keep our balance?
That's where we run into a major obstacle.
The text introduces a concept that completely flips our understanding of human biology on its head. It introduces what we might call the biological trap.
It is a staggering claim. The text states the self-existent Lord pierced the apertures of the senses outward. Therefore, mortals gaze outward and do not see the inner self.
This is a massive psychological insight. It's saying that by default, human beings are literally engineered, physically hardwired to look at the external world.
Right.
Our eyes look out, our ears listen out. Evolutionarily speaking, we had to look outward to survive predators and find food. We are biologically rigged to focus exclusively on the external sense objects, the paths those horses are running on.
Yes, our entire sensory apparatus is fundamentally externally oriented. We are entirely captivated by the chaotic projections on the screen of the world.
It's basically a trap.
And because of this evolutionary hardware, the text says the childish, meaning those lacking spiritual maturity, blindly pursue external pleasures and walk straight into the widespread snares of death.
So doing what feels natural leads you straight to the trap.
Exactly. Reversing this flow of attention requires a monumental, conscious effort that fights against our very biology. As the text says, a rare, wise seeker desiring immortality turned the gaze inward and beheld the innermost self.
So what does this all mean when we actually manage to fight our biology, rein in the horses, and turn that gaze inward? What do we find?
The text uses some beautifully bizarre imagery here.
Yeah, it talks about a thumb-sized person dwelling in the inner space of the heart.
The Agahamatrapu. It's described as dwelling right in the middle of the body, appearing like a smokeless, radiant flame. And it claims this tiny flame is the Lord of the past and the future.
A thumb-sized person made a smokeless fire burning inside the physical heart. To a modern learner, that sounds like a mechanic from a fantasy novel.
It does sound a bit magical.
Why describe the ultimate truth of the universe in such a specific, almost physical way?
Because it serves as a highly potent visualization tool for meditation. You have to remember, trying to comprehend an infinite, all-pervading, formless non-duality is nearly impossible for the human mind.
Right, the mind just blue screens.
Exactly. The mind requires an object to focus on. If you tell the mind to think about infinity, it spaces out. but by visualizing a perfectly pure, smokeless flame the size of a thumb, located within the literal center of your physical being, the heart, you give the mind a powerful, stabilizing anchor.
Oh, that's clever.
Once the mind achieves absolute stillness by focusing on that inner light, the realization can naturally expand outward to encompass the entire universe. It's a focal point to initiate ego dissolution.
Because fundamentally, the text insists it is all connected. It uses these fantastic elemental analogies to explain how this one inner self can become the staggering variety of everything we see in the world.
Right.
It says, just as one single element of fire enters the world and takes the shape of whatever it burns, whether it's a massive log, a tiny piece of paper, or an entire house, or how one wind takes different forms based on the space it permeates.
Yes.
The one inner self takes the appearance of every single created form while remaining completely transcendent and untouched outside of that.
And achieving that realization of non-duality, the profound knowing that every single thing is fundamentally an expression of the same inner self, is the ultimate objective.
It's all the same source.
The text offers a beautifully simple, elegant analogy for this state. It says, just as pure water poured into pure water remains pure and becomes entirely one with it, so becomes the self of the sage who realizes unity.
Pure water poured into pure water. Once they mix, you can no longer distinguish the original two drops. They are just water.
Exactly.
I love this because it is the ultimate antidote to our modern disease of isolation. We live in a society built on seeing multiplicity, seeing everyone and everything as separate from us, in competition with us, alien to us.
Exactly. The text explicitly warns against that exact modern mindset. It says, whoever perceives multiplicity and separation in this world goes from death to death.
Wow. From death to death.
As long as you perceive yourself as a separate, isolated ego, desperately fighting against a hostile, disconnected universe, you are bound by fear and mortality. You remain trapped inside what the text calls the city of 11 gates.
Wait, an 11-gated city. If my body is a city and my eyes, ears, nostrils, mouth are all gates, who is actually standing guard?
That's the problem.
Because half the time I feel like the gates are wide open and I'm letting every negative news headline, every toxic comment, and every stressful email march right through the front door and take over the town square.
That is precisely the vulnerability the text is highlighting. The body is the city with 11 gates, constantly receiving traffic from the outside world. If the charioteer is asleep, the gates are unguarded and the city is overrun by chaos.
Yeah, that feels familiar.
But the Upanishad reveals that this city is actually managed by an unborn, untainted consciousness, the true ruler. If you shift your identity away from being the fragile city walls and meditate on that invincible ruler within, you grieve no more. You achieve a state where you are liberated while living.
Liberated while living. That's a crucial distinction. Immortality in the Katha Upanishad isn't a promise about floating on a cloud after your physical heart monitor flatlines.
No, not at all.
It's an elevated state of consciousness you attain right here, right now, amidst the chaos of the world, by shifting your locus of identity from the perishable city to the imperishable ruler.
Which naturally leads us to the end game of the text. If that is the goal, how do we practically map the structure of reality to achieve it? Yama introduces another staggering visual to explain the architecture of the cosmos, the upside-down tree.
The ancient Ashvatha tree. Yama describes it as being rooted above in the unmanifest, the supreme consciousness, and branching downwards into our physical reality. It's the exact inverse of a botanical tree.
The metaphor is profound. It illustrates that the source of all life, reality, and consciousness isn't emerging from the dirt of the physical world. It is pouring down from a higher, subtler dimension into our gross physical reality.
It's coming from above.
The text explicitly states that this entire universe, having emerged from this supreme energy, moves and vibrates within it. It is an awe-inspiring power, like a raised thunderbolt.
So the universe isn't a dead mechanical clockwork. It is vibrating with supreme life energy, Prem.
Exactly.
And the entire cosmic order operates out of reverence for, or obedience to, this fundamental law. Fire burns, the sun shines, the wind blows, and even death executes its function because of the underlying structural truth of this upside-down tree.
This raises an important question: what actually is yoga in this context? Because when a modern learner hears the word yoga, they almost certainly picture physical flexibility, intricate postures, stretching, downward-facing dog in a boutique heated room.
Lululemon and yoga mats.
Right. But the Katha Upanishad provides a deeply specific, operational, and entirely internal definition of yoga.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with touching your toes. The text defines yoga as indriya dharana, the steady and complete mastery of the senses.
Yes.
It states, when the five senses of perception come to stillness along with the mind and the intellect itself rests without fluttering, that state is declared to be the highest destination. They define yoga as this steady and complete mastery of the senses.
It is the absolute disciplined halting of the horses. The chariot comes to a perfect silent standstill.
No movement.
The reins are taut, the charioteer is hypervigilant, but there is zero movement. However, the text immediately warns that the practitioner must remain fully vigilant, for yoga can be acquired and lost.
So it's not a one-and-done achievement. You don't just hit a meditation milestone, grab a certificate of enlightenment, and coast for the rest of your life.
I wish.
It's an active, dynamic, and ongoing state of balance.
Exactly. And how do you anchor that precarious balance? The text reminds us that the true self cannot be attained through speech, through brilliant intellect, or through the physical eye. It can only be realized by one who affirms with absolute, unwavering faith he is or it is asti.
You have to start with the baseline conviction of existence. You affirm the presence of the divine within, and from that foundational bedrock of vowing, it is the essential reality eventually reveals itself to you. And the promise of maintaining this practice is breathtaking. The text says that when all desires rooted in the human heart are completely eradicated, the mortal becomes immortal. It uses the phrase, untying the knots of the heart.
When all the knots of ignorance binding the heart are untied and shattered while living in this body, then the mortal attains immortality, shattering the knots while alive.
What are those knots, practically speaking, for someone listening to this today?
Psychologically, the knots of the heart are our deeply entrenched cognitive loops. They are our trauma responses, our rigid egoic desires, our irrational fears, and our false identifications with the physical body.
All our baggage.
Yes, they are the narratives we tell ourselves about who we are and who has wronged us. When the sharp intellect, the fully awake charioteer, uses the razor's edge of vigilance to cut through those conditioned narratives, the illusion of separation collapses.
The knots are severed.
The knots are severed. Pure water pours into pure water.
But the text doesn't stop at the psychological level. It actually gives us a physiological, or maybe esoteric, description of what happens at the exact moment of physical departure.
It does.
It maps out the inner architecture of the energy body.
Yes, it outlines the concept of notches, or subtle energy channels. It states that there are 101 primary subtle energy channels radiating from the heart center.
Okay, 101.
According to the Upanishad, one specific channel ascends directly upward to the crown of the head. If a master yogi consciously draws their life force and consciousness up through the central channel at the exact moment of death, they attain absolute irreversible liberation.
And what happens if the consciousness departs through any of the other 100 channels?
The text explains that those alternate pathways lead the consciousness to depart in various directions, pulling the soul back into renewed cycles of rebirth.
Back to the starting line.
Psychologically speaking, this represents the mind being pulled back into the physical realm by the gravity of its remaining attachments, unresolved traumas, and unfulfilled desires. Energy flows where attention goes, even at the moment of death.
To prepare for that ultimate transition, the final instruction Yama gives Naciketā is so vivid and tactical.
I love this part.
He tells the boy that the innermost self eternally dwells within the heart of all beings. And to truly realize it, with steady patience and discrimination, one should separate him from one's own physical body, as a central stalk is drawn from its sheath of munja grass.
You think about the physical action of that metaphor, it's brilliant. Drawing a delicate, fragile stalk from a sheath of rough, fibrous grass?
Yeah, it's tough.
You cannot just grip it and rip it out forcefully or the stalk will snap. It requires intense precision, a delicate touch, and above all, patience.
It maps so well to modern therapeutic practices, like cognitive diffusion and mindfulness, or acceptance and commitment therapy.
Very much so.
You don't violently suppress your thoughts or fight your biology. You slowly, patiently separate the observer from the observed. You stop saying, I am sad, and you gently pull the stalk out to say, I am the awareness observing the sensation of sadness.
That is a phenomenal modern application of the concept.
You realize you are the inner stalk, not the outer sheath of the body and its passing emotions.
And because Naciketā had the profound patience to draw that stalk, because he learned this entire discipline of Indriya Dharan from death himself, the text concludes with his triumph.
He wins.
It states that Naciketā attained Brahman. He became completely free from all impurities and transcended death forever.
But it doesn't end as just a biography of a mystical boy. The text adds a crucial addendum. So too shall anyone else who realizes this innermost self.
It's an open invitation.
Exactly. This wasn't an isolated miracle. It was a fully replicable blueprint for human consciousness.
Which synthesizes the entire mission of our deep dive. The Katha Upanishad reveals that the secret to conquering the fear of death isn't found in fighting death itself.
Right.
It is found in realizing that the awareness watching your dreams at night and the awareness watching you listen to this deep dive right now is the exact same immortal, unborn observer. By training our intellect, the charioteer, to master the wild horses of our senses, we untie the suffocating knots of our own hearts.
We stop falling for the immediate gratification of the merely pleasant, the prayas. We endure the discomfort required to choose the truly good, the surayas. We aggressively stop our senses from dragging us outward into the unguarded gates of the city, and we patiently turn our gaze inward to that quiet, smokeless flame in the heart.
It is an unparalleled masterclass in ancient psychology, demanding that we wake up and take the reins.
It truly is. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the learner listening right now, with a final lingering thought to mull over independently. It builds on that biological trap we discussed earlier. The text explicitly states that the Creator purposely pierced the senses outward, meaning we are biologically engineered by default to look at the external world. If human biology was literally designed by the divine to distract us, does that mean true enlightenment isn't a natural, peaceful evolution of the human mind?
Oh, that's heavy.
Is it actually an active, intentional rebellion against the very way we were engineered? If the physical body is the ultimate biological trap, are we fundamentally meant to fight our own divine programming?